everyone, I'm Liz Hunt.
I'm Chelsea Poppens.
And this is the Agency Rocket Show, where we talk about the chaos of running our creative agency.
Woo! And today we are going to be talking to you about how to price your branding project. In the past episodes, we've talked about our process for branding. We've talked about our discovery and interactive mood board and gone into detail with it. So another key piece is how we're pricing the branding projects. And I think that's a lot of overlooked information when they either undervalue their services or maybe they're not pricing for the right industry. So we thought this would be really useful to dive into a little bit more for you guys.
Mm-hmm. I love that we are doing this kind of stuff because I also think that sharing the secrets behind being a branding agency, the secret sauce, but also the secrets of pricing. There's not very many agencies that are like, I'll show you mine if you show me yours. A lot of agencies don't like to do that. They don't want to share how much they charge or what they will charge. I want to blow that up, I want to blow the roof off this thing, help all the other, freelancers and other entrepreneurs who are just trying to make it in this life. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're trying to do here.
Also let's new
talk
agencies.
About money.
Yeah, show me the money. But I think also when you're starting out an agency, oftentimes you don't know how to price accordingly, depending on how many people are involved. Even things that go overlooked, like software costs and overhead costs that go into the brand, your brand, not just branding projects, but website project and everything else. Yeah. And there's so much that goes into it, and being transparent with clients, how you're communicating pricing to your clients. And there is a lot that goes into it.
Yeah. Yeah. We always say that pricing is one of the hardest parts of the business. And it's true. I think it's true for any business, not just creative agencies. Creative agencies is especially hard because it's so intangible what we do. But I think pricing for any business is one of the hardest things that you can do.
Branding, like you said, is one of those things that people are like, can't you just whip up a logo sometimes? Like, can't you just slap some colors on it? Why would you charge me this much? And to those people, what would you tell them? Or what do you tell them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. Well, one, I would say, get out of my office. We do not work together anymore. No, actually, I have had people say that to me. Even people that were not necessarily client adjacent. It never really feels good to have somebody say, we don't value you. We don't value the work that you do.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is that everyone has different priorities in life. And so I also have to take a step back, check my ego, and remember that, one, we aren't saving lives, Do I think that design can save the world? Yeah. Do I think that design can save the world to a degree? Yes. But of course I have to believe that because that's who I am. That's what my assignment on this earth is for, being a designer. So I have to have a religious perspective on design, right? But I also, to some degree, have to understand that I'm not saving people's lives, so I have to have a balanced view. Yes, It's everything in my life, but also I understand kind of the balance and circle of life, right?
Yeah,
we're all a tapestry, right? And we all have a place. Let me just start with that. If people think that, can't you just slap something up there and use Microsoft Paint or use clip art or use 99 Designs.
Aren't you just making this with Canva?
Right. Yes. Yep.
We've
those
had
conversations.
We've had clients just make commentary in regards to Canva, and we're slightly not jaded towards them, but it's kind of like a slap in the face. Like,
yeah. I've come to the place now where those are just not the clients for us. And those clients have a specific type of person that they would work well for. Like 99 Designs has a place, and Canva has a place, and they have a client. And in the same way that I believe an abundance mindset, I believe that there's enough work for the designers who build stuff on 99 Designs and people who make stuff on Canva. And then I also believe that there are clients who believe in the bespoke consulting that we do in our company and the very artful, thoughtful process that we go through in our organization. It's just a difference in what the person prioritizes. If they prioritize brand, and if they prioritize understanding their audience, and they understand and they realize that we're not just making a logo. If a client understands, we're not just making a logo, and we're not just making pretty pictures. There's a big difference between doing that and actually building a brand. And building a brand is what Nike has, right? And making a logo is what Hyatt Hotel has. You know, if Hyatt Hotel were to create a line of sneakers, I have no idea what that line of sneakers would look like. But if Nike were to create hotels, we all know exactly what those hotels would look like. And that's the difference between having a brand and having a logo. And so we work with people who are interested in building a brand.
And to remind everybody, all of our listeners, branding is much more than just a logo. Like Liz just said, is how it's seen, felt, heard, the voice behind it. It's a little bit of everything from the color palettes to the fonts, typography, the graphical elements that are used. And then that also goes into the cost of the project. So not only are we creating pricing per industry and the people that we're pitching towards and how large they are, how small they are, and their specific needs and expectations for the branding, but also it's what deliverables are we creating at the end of the day. Once they land on the specific stylescape, which is after our discovery meeting, we have like a stylescape presentation and a final stylescape presentation. Once they land on that, what are we creating? What are we giving to them? That's a logo package, whether that's, are we taking that brand and building a website? Are we taking that brand and running an email campaign? How are we using that campaign and dripping it to a whole corporation so that all the employees and all of the clients receive that brand well? And so those are the type of things you have to keep in mind when you're pricing a project like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's a lot of things that can go into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you think about companies like Pepsi and all these larger companies that have rebranded. When you put it in perspective, the Pepsi logo redesign was like, they spent about $1 million for that, just for that logo redesign. And then there's a bunch of different companies, like even like Dunkin' Donuts. I think their branding was around like 100 million. I'd say like DayCloud, we have a lot of Omaha-based clients. We're not working with the Pepsis or the Dunkin' Donuts. Would maybe love to, but but we understand our clients and the type of clients that are seeking our services and the people that we want at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So let's start with the basics of understanding your costs. Yeah. So we talked about kind of understanding what your employee salaries are, the software subscriptions, things like overhead cost of your office space. Yeah. If you're a freelancer, a lot of your overhead, your pricing is going to be lower if you're not working with an agency, because at an agency, we have to consider a lot of different variables. It's not just Liz and I doing the thing. We have a whole team of people that we have to support and make them feel good within the culture of our company. There's a lot of different things. Firstly, you have to understand your hourly rate. Lock that in. What is your hourly rate? And you define that. It's kind of versatile depending on whether you're a freelancer or whether you're an agency. What are you charging for that hourly project? And then a lot of times Liz and I will sit down and we'll break down the people involved in a specific branding project. We'll even like very minute details of the soft costs, meetings, time am I spending on admin tasks or project management, internal communication. How much time is that taking on our side? It's not just the time doing the branding and talking with the client. Like, you got to understand time is money to everybody, and you have in agency world. Money.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yep, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Time is money in agency world. Yep. A lot of what we do is what I will do when I'm thinking about how do I practically put together an actual budget for a branding project. So I will put together who are the key players. And that will be things like myself and Chelsea, obviously. And then it'll be our designer team. It'll be our copy team. And then any of the other ancillary, people that we might need. So maybe it's a marketing intern, or maybe it's a developer if we're doing a website. And so I'll put together all those main players that we have. And then I will build out the estimated amount of time that those people each will need for the project. And the way that I estimate that is based on doing this for over a decade. And I know that that's like not super helpful for a lot of people, but if you are a freelancer and kind of doing this on your own, that's going to be a lot easier for you to track your time. And so that's one thing I would say is make sure you are tracking your time, because we have 13 years of historical data that we can look at to see all the over 100 or more different brand projects that we have done through the 13 years. And we can see like, okay, how much time do we actually spend on branding projects, And so we have those 13 years of data that we can look back on, because we've actually been using the same time tracking system and platform software that we've had for the last 13 years. So we have all of that data. And so that's really, really helpful. And so if I need to, I can always go back and look.
Yep. Now, and we're pretty adamant also about using Harvest. All our people track their time in Harvest. We have it separated if it's specific design time on a specific project. That's what Liz is kind of referring to. We can look into Harvest. I don't know there's other tools out there that you can look into. We like Harvest. We recommend it, but it'll help you break down how much time is spent by who, whether that's in meetings, project management, design, and then you can kind of build accordingly.
Yeah. And it's super helpful. So then what I'll do is I will break things out into different categories. So it'll be how much time we spent on creative. And I do this all in a Google Sheets document. So how much time we need for creative, how much time we need for reviewing. That's a big thing that I haven't done a good job of budgeting into. And that's like reviewing and like client edit time. So time that I need to spend with our design team or with our creative team, with our copy team, reviewing the work and then giving them edits, and then them being able to have time to make those edits. Because there's always going to be stuff that I, have that I think needs to be refined or whatever it is. So that's been something that we've had to adjust over the years. The other thing that we do is, so the creative includes the design and content side of things, right? And then I also always have a meeting section, because we have meetings at every juncture of the process. And so we make sure that we have time for that. And as a heads up, it's not just a 1 hour time that you put in there. I am considered 1 hour. Chelsea's considered another hour. And then our designer, if they are there, that's considered another hour. And so every single person that is there, if it's a 1 hour meeting, every single person that's there is considered another hour. So it's a 1 hour meeting. If you have 6 people there, is considered a 6 hour meeting. So just keep that in mind, because every single person that's there is an additional time. And then, like Chelsea's saying, the admin time. That is the one that will sneak up on you. Spending time emailing clients, spending time working with your team, making sure they're fully resourced, and, any sort of back and forth with the client, any sort of phone calls that I have to make with the client because we need something from them, or they are making bad decisions about the creative and I have to talk them off the ledge, or, whatever it needs to be. Those things that I think get forgotten about. It's not just design, right? And so I put all that in a spreadsheet, add up those hours, and then I take that and let's say it's like 50 hours, right? And so I take 50 hours and I times it by our hourly rate. And then I take that number and I times that by 1.4 or 1.5. And then that's where I give myself a good starting point for how much to charge for a project. In this case, branding project. Because then I will have extra margin, the 40% margin or a 50% margin for the project. That's how I really tally up the project and include a lot of solid margin in there. And so there's also margin in our hourly rate too. So we have a lot of cushion. Yes, it does end up being expensive. But again, we are working with clients who understand the value of what it is that we're doing and are looking for building a brand and not just some 99 Designs logo graphic, right?
They have that budget.
Yeah. And so the other thing I will do is if, let's say we're using a contractor for something, I will have them send me their dollar amount, their price for something. And then I will always add additional margins to that. So I'll take, let's say they are saying, yeah, it's going to cost $2,000 for me to do this part of the process. And I'll say, okay, great. And then I will take that times 1.7, or 1.5 or whatever it is, whatever those margins need to be to make me feel good about hiring a contractor or to make me feel good about building this project, then I will do that. I never do less than 1.4 for margins. We always want to make at least a 40% margin.
But also, I want to say our roster of people that we work with, we really value working with top of the line designers and top of the line developers. Our websites are custom built, custom designed. And I think that's a key piece to think about it too, is what, like, you and the people you surround yourself, the people you work with, like it's our people that we're bringing onto this project. So that is why there's a little margin on the contractors that we choose to use.
Yeah, and because we have to make money. We're not, we're business.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But
yeah. Okay.
Did that not make sense? What I said?
No. What do you mean?
That the fact that we are the in-between person between like the contractors, like even for people that like if there's print management or things like that, like we are the in-between and it's still our time and it's our network of people. So a lot of times, like that's another factor, like because these are our people.
I see. Oh, so like you're talking about if a client uses us and then we hire a printer for them, right? And then we charge a fee on top of that printer's job.
Yeah, but I was meaning also the contractors we choose to bring on the projects as well.
Well, yeah. Well, because we have to make money on that. But then also, like it's our time. If we're finding a printer for them and, that kind of stuff, yes, we charge extra because it's our time. And it's, our time is how we make money in this business. And so, yes, we have to charge extra on top of anything we do. So, yes.
Yeah. So I think another piece of it is how you're communicating this pricing to the clients. A lot of times we'll meet with our client, we'll assess their needs. They'll tell us what deliverables specifically that they want. We might pitch some things that we think would be of value to them throughout the branding process. And you can count that as like an upsell, an opportunity for us to share our expertise and share our knowledge and the things that we think would level up their experience with us and the things that they get, the outcome of what they get. And I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's why they're coming to us for a branding project, because of our expertise. But how you communicate that price to the client is an extremely important piece, because not everybody understands pricing until people break down the why it's priced that way. And people, like there's times where I've talked to people and they're like, oh, this freelancer freelancer charges this. I'm like, it's a freelancer. It's not an agency. An agency is obviously has a whole team, has a whole lot of minds in every decision around the stylescapes, the branding, the deliverables. There's a lot more like perspectives coming into play. It's not just one freelancer's perspective on what they think that you should get as a client. It's the entire experience with us is why an agency costs a little bit more than what a freelancer would.
Yeah. That's such a good point, Chels. Yes, we are going to charge more. And right now, the state that we are in our agency, all of our branding projects start around $15,000. And that's for small companies and with fewer decision makers and things like that. To that end, the reason that we can't even like fire up our computers for less than that is because the reason is that we have a lot more people on our team that are working on this project. When we are building a brand, we are building a brand, see earlier in our podcast for what we were talking about, right? Like we're building creative and we're building logos and we're building color palettes and we're building taglines and marketing language. And we are defining your tone of voice and we are defining your brand story and your brand promise. And we are building out what signage will look like. And we're building out email newsletters and we're building out a bigger picture and not just the visual identity, but we're building out a whole picture for you. And that's what, we have a whole team that is working on it because the bigger picture needs a bigger team in order to build this out for you. And so, yes, of course, it's going to be more expensive because you have a larger team working on a bigger picture for you.
Yeah. And so going back to kind of communicating that to your client, it's highly important to be transparent about what's included in this branding process and what's not. Set those expectations to avoid any confusion down the road.
Yeah.
We provide a scope of work, a proposal that's highly detailed. Whether they read it or not, that's up to them. But we let them know that this is what was in the proposal. We have a pricing breakdown, and we explain the value of our pricing and what kind of results they're going to get, the impact of that branding, and how it's going to contribute to that client's long-term success.
Yeah. So one of the things I do in our proposals is I never email our proposals over to clients. I always set a meeting and do that either over Zoom or even in person if necessary, because I know that clients don't speak branding language or marketing language like we do. And so they're not going to know, like, what does it mean when I say we're going to have a primary, secondary, tertiary color palette system for you to, pick from, right? Like they don't know what that means, but I do. And so I'm going to talk them through all those different things and explain to them what they actually get for the pricing and for the cost. And then the other thing that we do in all of our branding proposals is I spell out the process in nauseating detail. And that is something that I think is really, really good for some clients, and some clients probably hate it or like don't care at all. But, it's something that we do is I spell out the process. I talk about the discovery process and the stylescape process and, like every little thing that they get from there. And then the other thing that I do is I make sure and talk with a client about what are those actual brand deliverables that matter to you. Is it a business card? Or would having like a brand launch party be way more important for you, and for your customers or for your clients, right? Like which part of this brand would actually be more valuable for you, and where can we help partner with you in the best ways? And that's how I build out those brand packages.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you said that we meet them in person to deliver the proposal, because a lot of times you'll get emails that are just like, can you send me some estimated pricing? But best practices for sales is get in person, get in front of the face, let them get to know you. They're going to buy into the person more than they are going to buy into some numbers and details on a page. They're going to get multiple quotes with multiple pieces of information that they probably don't understand. But if they can see you face to face, see that you're a good person who has their best interest at heart, that's going to go way further than just kind of like, I know it's going to save you time to just send it off, but get in front of their face, get on a call. Like that's going to drive way more sales and revenue for you as a freelancer, as an agency at the end of the day.
Yeah. Get people to like you.
Yep. Yeah. So kind of the next thing I think is really important to see, what are the common mistakes that people make and how to avoid them?
Yeah.
Liz, do you want to speak on that?
Sure. One of the things that we did early on that was a massive mistake was not limiting the rounds of revisions that a client gets when we have a lump sum pricing. So what I like to do is I say you get 2 rounds of edits per deliverable. So for the branding piece, it's like for every deliverable that we give you, you get 2 rounds of edits. To me, that's very, very generous for clients. It allows them to share their feedback, offer their feedback, but also it helps us to not go, upside down on any projects. But then we spell it out in detail in the contract. And then Chelsea, in her wonderful project management ways, repeats it several times. And one of the ways that we communicate it too is when a client says like, hey, this, here's more edits that we have for you. One of the things that we've learned to do is say, that sounds great. We'll send you an estimate for the additional edits. Or, we say when we're sending the final round, we say, okay, this was your final round of edits. If we have any additional, we're happy to make them. It'll just be out of scope and we can send you an estimate for those, And so we're just over communicating that is the process and that is the expectation that we have for the project. And what that has allowed us to do is that has allowed us to keep clients from being pissed off at us.
Here's the receipts.
Yes. That it has allowed us to just over communicate that these are the expectations for this project and be very, very clear. And so clients don't get ticked off and we don't get taken advantage of, throughout the process. And so that's been super, super helpful when we started over communicating that and putting that in our contract and then saying it multiple times. A couple of times we've even done it to where we've said in the email subject line, round 1 edits, and then send it back to them. And then round 2 edits or final edits, send it back to them so that it's very clear.
We also make sure that sometimes we'll have clients who sporadically send their edits. When they come to mind, we'll be like, oh, thank you for these edits. When you have them all collected, let us know. Like when you have everything in one place and you're done giving your feedback, we will then make those edits and that will count as the round, and being transparent about that. But also, kind of like you said, like we've talked about this before in previous episodes, where that yes man mentality, it's a yes, we're happy to do this, but it will be out of scope. It will be at our hourly rate. We can do this. We will do this as long as this and this happens. I'm
happy to make all the edits you want. You're just going to pay for them. That's fine. Yeah. I mean, it is your project, So,
yeah. I mean, that's part of the customer experience.
Yeah.
But kind of going back to some of the other pitfalls that happen when pricing a project, I think a lot of mistakes that people make early on is underpricing in order to win a project and undervaluing their expertise. I think it goes hand in hand. When you're new, you're a freelancer, you're starting up your business or something, you oftentimes undervalue your expertise and underprice yourself until you've got more work in the pipeline. And then you're like, oh, I have a lot of work. I am valued. The proof is in the pudding. kind of phrase. And then you learn to like, what is your price? And you understand your value. Mm-hmm. And then another one I think is over promising without charging for those extra rounds. There's a lot of, I think you've said this, Liz, that like other agencies you've talked to, like they don't have a set amount of rounds. And they're like, we just make them. We just make the edits.
That's so bad. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's how you get taken advantage of, and your people get burnt out. Your internal team, I think that's how they get burnt out. You have to have some form of boundaries. Even if it's 5 rounds of edits, if you have a really hard time pushing back, if you are very not confrontational, which a lot of designers can be, but at some point you have to have some sort of boundaries.
Yeah, no, I believe in that, because it's nothing's more frustrating to be like, oh, they have another round of petty remarks. Yeah. And sometimes they're very like super petty, very meticulous. I don't know, just like very minor edits that don't actually matter sometimes. Yeah. And you're just banging your head against the wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any other mistakes
pricing pitfalls?
Yeah, that you've made in your 13 years of running Day Cloud?
Yeah, so many.
Share the one where that artwork, that wall that you guys painted for a nonprofit or something, and then don't share it. Maybe that's not what you want to share.
Oh, well, I mean,
where you guys did a whole wall where people were gonna come and color it, and then it was fully covered, and he's like, "When's the next one coming?"
Yeah, man, that's a whole story. Yeah, that was a whole story. We had 3 artists, 2 of our designers, and one who's like an environmental designer. He's my cousin. He's like world famous environmental set designer. And we were doing this pop-up shop in the middle of the mall. And as part of the interactivity of the pop-up shop, we designed out and then had those 3 artists with Sharpie marker draw a 40 feet, so huge, an 8-foot tall mural. And they used black Sharpie marker. And it was basically a gigantic coloring book that said, "Love can do anything," right? And then the idea was for people to come into the pop-up shop, and like, there's all these different interactivity types of things. But it took these artists 4 days to do this entire 40-foot long coloring wall. And the first weekend that we opened up the pop-up store, the coloring wall was filled in. We had so many people come through that the entire wall was filled in within 1 weekend. And it was awesome. You know, like, it was such a huge success, and it was amazing and all this stuff. And the client came to us and was like, "So do you guys have another one of those ready?" And at that point, I was ready. I was ready to have I almost broke down and started sobbing right there in his face, because I was like, what?
And this was at the beginning of your career too, where you were a yes person. You're like, yeah, I would love to do this, and you were learning.
It was not actually the beginning. It was like, I think it was 6 or 7 years into it. Oh, so like,
okay, never mind.
No, it was not. It was just that entire pop-up store was the worst thing I've ever done in my entire life. We were just so beat down. Mm-hmm. Him saying that was like, I'm going to have an absolute panic attack and breakdown in front of you.
What would you say that experience taught you? What lessons did you learn from that experience that you would love to relay to any people that like you?
Oh God. Chelsea.
What would people Give us some pieces of advice.
Life lessons. Not talking about. I don't want to talk about this. It's so traumatic. I have PTSD from that. Oh God.
Well, I think it's really valuable to hear what key lessons and takeaways you had from that experience. Like, what would you not do? How would you do it better besides not doing the project entirely?
Yeah, like literally everything about that project I would never do again. It was the worst thing I've ever said yes to ever. So prior to, oh God, like I'm starting to like.
She's sweating.
I am like Andrew and I still have PTSD from that project. I'm having trouble breathing. Oh God.
So one, I think from what I'm hearing from your story, you would set more boundaries on the deliverables and the expectation.
Here's the thing. The client told us that they could have volunteers do 98% of the work.
Oh.
And that didn't happen. It ended up being Andrew and I there every single day, every single night, figuring out how to build, like actually build with hammer and nails. These like massive,
not
like
these
pop-up
nails.
trees. I didn't have giant fingernails that I do now. We painted an entire map of Omaha on the ground. It was a
humbling, I can't remember experience.
It was like a 6,000 square foot space or something insane, and we wanted it to be like a 600 square feet size. And it just, we were just in way over our heads, and the client promised that they would help a lot more than they did. And we spent like $65,000 of our own personal money and to get the project over the finish line. I think the biggest thing that we learned was that saying yes and just figuring it out is actually not always the right thing, because that was like always our motto as entrepreneurs. You just say yes and figure it out. And that was when I learned that maybe
wrong.
Well, yeah, maybe my passion can use a little bit of wisdom sometimes, you know? Yes, I'm super passionate and all this stuff, but sometimes I need to be a little smarter.
Sometimes it's okay to say no.
Yeah. That project honestly ruined me for a lot of things.
Well, I don't think you're ruined. I think you're great. And you're doing fabulous.
Well, yeah. She's
still recovering mentally from bringing her back to that moment in time.
Honestly, I don't ever want to talk about it ever again. Like, I can't even believe you made me talk about it, Chelsea.
I thought it was a good example for people to learn from.
Oh my God. I'm mad at you. Don't make me do that. Oh my God.
Just go have a happy hour after this. You'll be fine. Or now. Maybe that is happy hour as we speak.
Cheers.
Cheers. Well, I think that's a good story to end on. Kind of to recap what we went over today is understand your industry, understand your client, understand your hourly rate and all the things that are going into the pricing for a branding project. Hope you guys got some wisdom. Loved Liz's traumatic story.
Yeah, she's Louise.
And if you like this episode, please like, share, follow, share with some friends, share with some creatives you think would benefit, and go take a look at some of our previous episodes where we got some good stories and extra quirky personalities chiming through.
Bye.
Bye.